So what I'd like to start with is with Todd. We heard from Jan's presentation that in digital, the new CMO has to master marketing, but also has to market sales. And I know that in a place like Redmart, that's probably even more so. So can you tell us a little bit how you basically managed to reconcile the two disciplines? Marketing and
sales?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just along the same spectrum, really. I mean, they're both trying to convince somebody to buy something from you. So we look at it as one function, really, and making sure that marketing is supporting sales. It's a different approach. It's a different channel, really. But I think it's good just to look at sales as a channel rather than as a distinct function.
Thank you. Jordan, question for you. We've spoken about the move from mass communication to hyper targeting, and what sort of advice do you give to clients in terms of trying to capture the right customer insights and fishing out for the right customer data?
So I think, can you guys hear me at the back?
I think my turn.
Russ is always
We'll just yell.
Yeah. It's not a very big room. So I think personalization is a very big word, and it ranges from many different facets. But I think the involvement that I've had with my clients typically evolve around advertising, especially in the space of programmatic, where now things like retargeting, where you give them personalized messages. People should be doing more, but not enough clients are doing enough. And the clients are doing it are actually not doing it right. Because how many of us now, you've gone to Redmart once and then you see multiple promotions, selling you the same thing over and over again. Because, the frequency capping, the way that maybe some of the KPIs that you're giving to your media partners are not set to the best optimal. So everyone is just trying to give you a conversion. And by getting you that conversion, it potentially could risk jeopardizing the brand experience, right? Because you're continuously screaming at MySpace. So it's important. Personalization, while it's important, the CMO needs to start thinking about how's my overall brand experience, what is the customer journey in order to achieve that. But, getting retargeting campaigns done, make creative optimization off the blocks is a great first step. And I think partners like ourselves, like CtrlShift, can come and add a lot of value in terms of the overall experience and adoption.
Thank you. Also, thank you for suggesting to Todd that he should change a programmatic provider.
I just have to add on to that, right? So the consumers that go on your site and you know them and you retarget and everything, that's one set of databases, right, that you're accessing. If you're advertising like mass, if you will, you kind of have to be careful about really targeting, right? It's about segmentation. It's about getting groups of people that match certain criteria that you want, but not an actual person. Because if you're a brand appearing to them for the first time, you don't want to know too much about them. The Minority Report stuff is scary. If they know you, it's one thing. But if they don't know you and they've never really engaged your brand, and you're like, hey, you've got a 12-year-old child, it's just too scary, right? And so it's segmentation. It's I think it's when it comes to mass, you got to think about segmentation and narrowing down groups of people.
I think there was a story a couple of years ago. Tesco, this was in the offline, but Tesco had such a great insight into their customers that they started promoting nappies and new mom products to a teenage child, and the father got quite upset, but she was actually pregnant.
Yeah.
That was Target. Yeah, it was Target in the US.
Good targeting, yeah. So, Justin.
Yeah.
Hello.
Get ready. Get ready to project.
So, I mean, your job, and pretty much anybody's job in marketing today, is becoming immensely complex, and it's just CMO is becoming this kind of octopus with multiple tentacles in covering different disciplines. But Microsoft, in terms of technology innovation, has been quite ahead of the curve for a number of years now. So, what would you say are the capabilities that a marketeer will need to have, let's say, in 5 years' time?
Yeah. It's interesting, in my industry, change is the norm. There's so many new technologies, from artificial intelligence to big data to machine learning, that are coming at us. The question really isn't what's the next 5 years set of technology roadmap look like, but how do I gear my team to be ready for change? What's the mindset they need to be able to adapt to change? And we've been making a big investment over the last 12 to 18 months in this idea of growth hacking mindsets, and building that into every one of our marketing team members. And that really has two components to it. Number one, are we voracious learners? Are we humble enough to throw out our old ideas? Are we hungry enough to hunt down the new ideas? Are we willing to test and iterate and transform and learn and learn and learn, is one attribute that I look for and screen for in every leader that I bring onto the team and every marketer that we have in the team. We have formal training around that. The second aspect of this growth hacking mindset is applying science to marketing, and applying those learnings in a specific way so that we're continually testing how we're attracting, retaining, and upskilling and upselling our customers using data-driven tests, small iterative tests that test certain elements of the customer experience. Again, throwing out what doesn't work, building on what does work. And within my team, we have obviously a set of targets around ROI, but we have targets around LOI, learning on investment. Are we learning fast enough is the key question. And it was interesting is I was with my team, and we were in this growth hacking training workshop, and I created this project where I said, let's pick 5 ideas, we'll put $10,000 behind each idea. You've got 1 month to test a new concept on some aspect of the customer experience. We'll meet back in a month, let's figure out what worked and what didn't. All 5 ideas had a very high LOI return in terms of the insight that we gained on the customer. One of those ideas had a very high ROI return, and it was something we never would have done unless we would have had this bold ambition to growth hack. And it was, we were working with IT pros, computer professionals, and we were talking about one of our products, and we gamified the way that they interacted with the product. I would have killed the idea instantly because it didn't seem like it would work, but the team tried it, iterated, it worked, and it's our single biggest investment right now to drive one of our big marketing investments, to drive one of our showcase products this year. So I think really skilling people to learn rapidly, test rapidly, and iterate rapidly. And the thing that I learned, I think personally, was you gotta right size this stuff. You gotta do things small, fast, and agile, because that helps you manage risk and helps you manage failure and allows you to learn fast. So I think that's a key skill that we've got to build into the fabric of marketing and the fabric of business going forward.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got IT guys to play games.
Yeah, I was surprised. But what's the rule in the marketing? My customer is not me, right? So don't assume anything until you try it.
Thank you.
But sorry, can I ask a quick question? Yeah. How did you get the company to support $50,000 of investment in a test and learn environment?
I have that discretion. So I'm in a position where I have a decent sized budget. And when I look at the amount of money we're allocating to learn, test, and hack new ideas, it was basically zero, frankly. So I just carved out some money and just made it happen.
Thank you. Taru, you've been advising quite a number of clients and future marketeers. I mean, the word says it itself. You're constantly looking at what's out there. What would you say are some of the key things that marketeers need to do today in order for them to be relevant and still continue to exist tomorrow?
I mean, the short answer is refer to Justin's excellent answer. Because a lot of the answers, literally the key points are, all of the marketers we work with, they've stopped doing long-term digital planning. You know, earlier they used to get out of bed to do 5-year plans, 3-year plans. These guys can't see the next 6 months in digital.
Yeah.
So that's a big change they've had to go through. You know, they're saying, all right, guys, in the next 2 quarters, what experiments am I willing to back? So that's one big change. The second biggest change is, and I call it to them to say, guys, just change one question. Most marketers were asking, how did the campaign do? I'm saying just change that question to how is the campaign doing? Be in it. See what data is telling you and be ready to change in the moment. Now, they're simple to say, but very, very difficult to do two things. So that's what we've been helping a lot of clients do.
Also, I guess, how is the campaign doing? Because campaign should always be on, always on, yeah?
We say that, but for years, I mean, the eminent panel here, you know, the mind starts switching in saying that's my launch date. But actually, in digital, the work starts when it's launched, not finished when it's launched, right? So they say it, but they don't behave it.
It should be a product life cycle view, not a campaign view, not campaign by campaign by campaign, right?
Thank you. Joe, I'm going to talk out so people can hear me better. Digital is always, it's often being considered a space where you've got a lot of transactions happening. It's not really the type of space where you would expect brands to be built. What's your view there? What would you say if you disagree with the view that you cannot build brands online? What are the best strategies for building brands online?
Well, brands are built online, right, or rebuilt, like Old Spice and stuff like that, right? And then we've seen examples of that. Digital hasn't been known to be a brand. It's more of direct response. It's performance marketing. It has moved. Everyone knows. They've done it for years. It's easy to take the direct response dollars from mailers we used to do and just move it over, search, all that stuff. And yes, but over the years, it's been moving. People are putting money into branding. I think the issue is not enough from our perspective, obviously, and that boils down to measurement, right? So the traditional money's been on TV, out of home, magazines, newspapers, all that stuff, and then there's digital, which has this big component of it's got to have a return on investment. It's got to have this performance. But the reality is there is a brand effect, which and the measurement is not there. So when marketing, branding 101, right? Reach, frequency, eyeballs, number of times they see your message, and there's a reach curve that all CMOs want to see, and they want to plug in different TV, out of home, and all that stuff, and as it builds up. But the measurement for branding effect, the reach, frequency, and all that stuff, is siloed in each of the channels. And I think the challenge now is how to combine that so that they can have an overall effect of reach for across different channels, media channels, and then start to play around with different channels and say, okay, if I reduce TV by a little bit and I use for digital or mobile, and how I still get my reach, but do I get better transparency on how it works, right? And I think that's the change that's happening, that measurement of cross media, cross channel.
It's been said a couple of times as well that I can't talk anymore.
We can hear.
Soft-spoken Italian.
We're going to free up your hands so you can do a little more of your hands.
Just read my hands. It's almost a little bit an unfair game because anytime somebody goes on digital, everybody says, okay, show me the results, show me the data, it's the right response. But nobody kind of asks the same questions of TV and radio. And sometimes you're asking of digital, you're asking too much transparency out of digital, and sometimes you feel like you're over-promising as well.
It's our fault.
Yeah, in a way.
Right?
Yeah. It's your fault. Yeah. Okay. Todd, you've been playing the digital game for a number of years now, and what I'd like you to share with the audience is a little bit some of the war stories. Some of the tough moments that you've encountered, some of the challenges you've faced in really getting on top of the digital game.
Sure. So just actually to follow up on that last question, at Redmart we now have 50% aided brand awareness and 40% unaided brand awareness, and 95% of our marketing spend has been digital this whole time. So obviously digital can build brands, and our number one source for initial brand awareness is Facebook. So, it's very much aligned with building brand online. I think some of the challenges is that, the digital ecosystem has sort of promised perfect measurement, with all due respect. And I think, those of us who are in the day-to-day of digital marketing know that there really is no perfect measurement. And yet CEOs of companies have been trained that there is perfect measurement. And so you'll get a lot of questions about, defending marketing spend based on certain attribution models that you're using. And it's tough to educate people on attribution models, it really is. It's not something that people intuitively understand. Google, by focusing on last click attribution for so long, has sort of trained everybody that that's the way to look at the world.
Yeah.
And I've shown our CEO that if I looked at Facebook on a last click attribution basis, we wouldn't spend any money on Facebook.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the big challenge we're having now. And I think the second big challenge is just technology. I mean, there's just so many technology providers. You were mentioning DMPs. I mean, if you did a Google search on DMPs, you would find 15 or 20 of them that you should be considering. Which one is best for you? And I think that's the other massive challenge we have.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just add on to what Todd highlighted, right? So I think there's a recent study that talks about the challenge of marketeers, right? A lot of marketeers wants to now reduce the number of tech vendors that they used to deal with. So I think an average Fortune 500 CMO have to deal with at least 20 different tech vendors, plus the multiple agencies and other different kind of service provider. I think what they're trying to do is to cut down from 20 to 5. That's the objective, which is why it's leading to now what we're seeing, the consolidation of the tech space as well, right? Because either you have raised too much money and you can't deliver the value that you provide, or there have been way too many small point solution that's trying to do one thing good enough, but there isn't enough demand for it. So yeah, but it's just how the industry is evolving along the way.
Actually, that chimes well into my next question, which is for Justin. And we spoke about technology, and obviously Microsoft is a technology player as well as...
Yeah, we have less vendors.
Yeah. And so what's from a CMO perspective, you've got to start getting on the technology. You need to start understanding technology. So what is your personal technology roadmap? What are the new gizmos you're looking to add to your armory?
A couple of things. First, I never look at technology in absence of looking at the business objective that we're trying to drive. And for our core score in our business, and every business is different, is daily active usage of our services and products. And so the question to me is, how do we create a customer life cycle that drives daily active usage digitally, physically, and otherwise, right? And what investments do we need to make across that life cycle to enable this? And we don't make big bang investments and roll them out globally. We make small investments, test, and then if they work, we build and we scale. What I would say, there are 4 main areas that we're specifically investing in to drive this active usage. First is in a 360-degree customer master. And so many of us today have customer data in silos, but bringing together the customer data, the transactional data, the marketing data, the support data together into a 360 view that you can use for marketing and selling purposes is something that we're building, designing, and landing, and it's critical for our business. Second piece is having a common set of platforms for digital demand generation. From advertising, social, all the way through, ensuring we've got a common, consistent model from Bangladesh all the way to Australia and engineering that. Third is marketing automation and building the right platforms that use machine learning and predictive analytics to understand what our customers are going to need and are doing in their journey, whether it's interacting on our website or interacting through other media, and serving them the content or the activity that they most need next to progress them in their life cycle. And there's a lot of powerful technology coming out through artificial intelligence and machine learning that can be applied to the science of marketing and many other aspects of business. And then the last is an integrated CRM platform that really truly integrates, which we say this all the time, but it's hard to actually land, marketing, sales, and partners from a lead management flow-through perspective in terms of how we run the business. And those 4 big investments underpin enabling this integrated customer journey to drive deep daily active usage and love for the products that we serve.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So let me, can I have a question? Right? So Justin, you just described what all marketers love to think is the holy grail.
Yeah.
So between, ideal and reality, how far are you from a scale of 0 to 100? Where are you in that journey?
I'd say 25 on the journey. And what I would say is we've got some pockets of really good success where we've integrated all 4 attributes that I've talked about for certain lines of businesses.
Yeah.
Now the question is, how do we do it for all lines of businesses? And guess what? How do we not pivot by product, but pivot by customer, right? And that is still part of the journey that we're on, and we'll probably never be done. I don't think. But.
I was just going to add a war story to how do people stay up to date with technology, right? Which was part of your original question. I mean, there's this business who's invested in social listening. One of the first baby steps people take. Now, they called us to say, our investment isn't giving enough returns. So I said, all right, let me shadow you guys from the senior leadership down to see how you're using it. Once on the 7th of every month, the general manager, the CEO, and the marketing team would sit down. The social agency would come and present a PowerPoint report on what social listening had revealed, right? Yeah. Now, someone who had said something 20 days ago, and you are debating it 20 days later in a theoretical environment, is how they don't adapt.
Yeah.
So what we did was, I'm giving you a small example because this is where you guys face the reality. So we said, number 1, no agency is going to come and present to you on the 7th. They said, but how will we know it's working or not? I said, because you're going to, on every Monday or Tuesday, go into the system, ask 2 questions using the system, which the agency will come and answer for you. So suddenly there was no PowerPoint, there was no status report, there was just CEOs and all going into the system, getting their hands dirty, and then eureka moments happen. They would come on the meeting on the 7th and say, you know what I spotted? I saw this theme in social list. Tell me more about this. Yeah. So short answer summary is, you have to be in it and doing it. Yeah. You can't flit about at this level. Otherwise your investment won't get you the return. I mean, does that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Can I make one more selfish plug? To get from 25 to 75 to 100%, we're hiring a role in my team, which is a chief marketing officer for Asia Pacific, and I'd love to leverage this network to look for great qualified people in this region. So please help me out. I'm new to the region. My network isn't great, so help me out.
I have a candidate for you. I'll let you know.
Tweet that out, guys.
She knows everyone. She takes commission, Tim.
It's a great company.
Brilliant. Yeah, you can leave your CV at the door. Taru, actually, you were spot on because the way we look at this is technology is obviously the catalyst for change. But actually, the catalyst for not changing tends to be the people.
Yeah.
And many marketeers are actually finding themselves today that as their marketing function is laid out, is not fit for purpose anymore. So what sort of advice do you give, and where do you see the roles and responsibilities and skills of the people in the marketing team changing?
So it really depends on where the business is in terms of maturity. So I'll give you 2 extreme examples to get it to land the point. There is one business which is an FMCG business, which is spending 25% of its marketing investment in digital already. Their problem is what I call a digital island has been created. So what they've done is they started the journey by hiring one head of digital. And you've been there, right? When that one head of digital wasn't enough in structural terms, they hired 2 more digital people behind that person. 3 became 7, 10, 15. they've now created structurally what I call a digital island, where the rest of marketing has sloping shoulders when it comes to digital.
Yeah.
And the digital island takes care of that. So that mature business structural challenge is, how do I dissolve that island and integrate digital into marketing? So that's one structural challenge. My simple advice to them, tell the digital island their KPI is almost LOI, to use your language. Their KPI is to teach the rest of the business and make themselves redundant. The minute you attach a revenue KPI to a digital island, you've screwed yourselves. Basically, because then the digital island, the digital team, has license to operate in isolation. So that's for mature businesses. For basic businesses, I say, really question whether you want that first head of digital, or do you need a learning platform to enable your current marketers to become more digital, so that you don't even go down that slippery path. So there's more we've written about this, a little bit short answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. One final question, and then I'd like to open to some floor questions. I'm sure there are plenty. For Joe, what words of wisdom do you have for those marketeers that are looking to step up the digital game?
I think it's sort of observation, first of all. We were talking about people who don't want to change. And then the opposite side is see people who are just grabbing shiny metal objects and just like, oh, new DMP, oh, this, they just start to grab things. There's a balance if you're a chief marketing officer, there's a balance of trying to understand, okay, I know what I know branding, I know marketing, I need attribution model. How is that shiny metal object going to fit into my dashboard? Do I need to expand my dashboard? But stay at the top level and question everything on how it fits into what you understand about. And most of them will get caught up in the shiny metal objects and sort of forget the traditional stuff. And then, as you know, to Justin's point earlier, right? What is, you know, digital is everywhere, right? TV is going to be digital. Out of home is digital. You know, iPads, all that stuff. It's digital. So digital is going to be everywhere in terms of media, and interaction with consumer with digital is going to be all these different points. Where there's social, you know, where you're a marketing officer and there's PR, there's, you know, CRM, there's all the touch points. So then, you know, I think CRM will be so important that if a CMO does not have CRM under them, they should. That's like, grab that, because you're already touching them through all the various points. To the point that change, you know, don't be a CMO, be a chief consumer officer. Change it, because you are going to be in charge of the consumer, right?
Thank you for that. I'd like to just open for any questions to the panel. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question before I keep talking? Hi guys.
Hi.
Justin, I want to be you. Sounds amazing. Yeah. Ad blocking.
Yep.
Can we please discuss?
I'll jump right into it.
Specific? Anyone? No, just
well,
discussion.
Obviously, it's a huge issue in the US. They see it as very inhibitive to publishers, but I understand that in Asia, people are far more accepting that if you want premium content, there's going to be a compromise on the user experience. But what I want to understand, whilst all of you are talking about how to target consumers and be awesome at it, how are you factoring in for what's happening in terms of ad blocking?
Anyone wants to?
I'll take it. Right now, no one knows, right, what's going to happen. I think some form of ad blocking consumers want, marketers want. It's the blanket, like, kill everything that's on a third-party server, that's ad server that comes into, or any kind of server that comes into the URL, and that kills the market completely. Like, mobile marketing is dead if that happens, right? Yeah. And I think at this point there is not enough data to see how that has affected. The U.S., we've seen some stuff, we've seen the blocking, and some publishers have shown us some numbers, but as an industry we haven't seen numbers to say, is it really bad? Will consumers like it or hate it?
So I just came back from Japan a couple of weeks ago, and I mean it was talked about as well. So I think over the last couple of weeks, while the news have sort of fizzled out, there's been two interesting trends that's happened, right? The first trend is actually a lot of these ad blocker softwares are actually infested with malwares and all. So a lot of people who install these ad blockers end up uninstalling them from their mobile devices. So that reduces a lot of the threat. And the second thing, a lot of publishers are actually fighting back, right? Where they actually have ad blockers detectors. The moment I know that you're blocking my ad, I'm not serving you my piece of content as well. All right, so that means no ad, no content, no money, no honey. But essentially, I mean, like what Joe mentioned, right? So far, the people like us who are in this core business, the results are inconclusive, and could it be one of those fad that has a lot of buzzword, given the fact that it's an interesting headline, but the actual effect, too early to comment. Yeah.
If I was a publisher, I would start serving PDFs. When someone requests for a page, I reformat it, send it PDF with an ad inside. Sorry. Any publishers in here? That's what I do. You can't strip out the PDF.
Any other questions?
Todd, this is Todd for you. You mentioned that part of your challenge is just keeping up with the technology that's happening in ad tech, and that's moving so fast. And as an e-commerce company, you want to be focused on what your day job is in terms of moving product and making sure that customers relate to the product. How do you think you can solve that issue in terms of staying on top of the trends in ad tech and making sure you get what you need out of it and apply it to your day job, essentially?
Yeah, so I think every CMO now has to be partly a technologist, which I'm coming to grips with finally, and it's hard because it does take a lot of time and it requires developing a new skill set. It was always an abstraction before as a marketer, but now it's actually part of your fundamental job. I think it's also part of, we were talking about how to build a digital team, and that's a skill I'm now looking for everybody I hire, is that they can go out and they can assess the technologies that they need to find as well. But ultimately, it's such a fast-moving and complicated landscape. I actually do think that that's where consultants and other service providers can really help to narrow down the field, because you can spend an endless amount of time. And we just did that in terms of marketing automation. It took us 8 months, and took me almost 25% of my time over those 8 months to make a relatively simple selection ultimately.
Yeah.
And so that's really becoming a big challenge. Yeah.
There's one company we work with, again, in the consumer packaged goods business. They've started Tech Tuesdays. So earlier, and the problem that led to this was this marketing business was getting all that tech advice from their agencies. And they said, you know what, I don't think we trust our agencies that much anymore. So I need
When did I hear that already?
Sorry?
When did I hear that? I thought I heard it already.
So Tech Tuesdays is this drumbeat event where the CMO and his team go and invite some tech vendors. It broadens their mind. 1 on 10 will stick, and they've actually created a relationship with one such vendor in the CRM space. So that's just one practical. Good idea.
I have a question. Imagining that when they invite in the vendor, do they bring the translators as well?
Right. I think that's part of what the vendors need to learn, but that's a separate session.
Only the vendor's Italian. Sorry.
You can always replace translator with boost. That works as well.
Any more questions?
Yeah, so actually I'm combining a bit of everything of what you guys said into a multi-pronged question, right? First question is, I think the economy is evolving rapidly, where there are very aggressive, huge startups like Redmart, let's say, for example, or the Zalloras of the world and stuff like that, who are very rapidly trying to disrupt traditional players, right? Whether it be logistics players or big guys or something like that, right? And the mindsets are very different, right? And a lot of these companies are digital first, right? But when you look at traditional marketers, and we work with many of them, I think the basic grounding up and the mindset is that of an abstract one, right? Which is further compounded by the agencies. So most of the AORs and all that are brand agencies who you say it's about data and all that, and they say, yeah, it's a single ad sale for mass, right? And it becomes, to me, I think there's going to be a potentially huge disruption of either economy and industry, or a shake-up of companies, or large traditional companies, right? Because they can't think faster. What do you guys think about this?
I'll start, because we're one of the, we've been around for a while, Microsoft has, and not too many years ago, 70% of our marketing dollars here in Asia Pacific were on events. So very traditional, enterprise-led sales. That's not the consumer marketing dollars, but that's the business marketing dollars. And we've radically shifted that, but we've got a long ways to go, and you've got to retrain how you even think about marketing. And that's why I talked about this growth mindset and really working on the fundamental skill levels of every single marketer, because you'll get disrupted if you don't. You've got to act like a startup. Growth hacking was born in the startup world. The second thing I would say, though, back to kind of the shiny object point, is you got to not over-rotate on just digital. You got to rotate on the business goal and the customer experience and figure out how technology and other techniques can really light up what your business goal is. And so always testing against how does this, in my case, drive active usage? How will it delight the customer? What is the outcome that we're enabling? I don't care what tool it is right now, we'll get there, I think is an important anchor point in the way that you think about your strategy and you transform your business. But I think your observation is astute, and big companies need to become startups again, right? But
Yep. No, I think
No, they have to change. I mean, they're going to. I mean, the bigger brands, the bigger they are, they'll move slowly, but they'll move. And hopefully, when they do, it's a big change. And as people roll out of them, right? The older generation, the people who are not used to it, move through. It might be longer than what some of us would like to see. But the new ones, the new ones come in. Like the e-commerce guys in India started blasting TV ads,
Flipkart,
right? Yeah, and so they're trying to get the brand awareness out. They start learning that way. So there's a bit of cross-pollination on that side too.
So I think all of you either have experience working in the US or Europe, or have clients in those regions and all that. 10 years ago, we used to say, hey, 6 months after something goes hot in the US, it'll probably come here so we can watch for the trends and all that. And maybe about 3 years ago, we started teaching them how to do mobile and stuff like that, right? Are you seeing more of clients sort of adapt or create marketing plans for each region or each market separately out of instead of a global plan?
I'll just share something. I mean, really different. So take Kimberly-Clark. Its ethos is local drives the P&L, and region marketing is only there as an enabler. On the other hand, MasterCard, another client, is very much globally driven, with region fighting against the global will, because you know what? They don't understand Asia. So really, I mean, there's no one set answer. One commonality, though, is both businesses are getting far more acutely aware of real consumer insights. So that for me is the biggest leveler I'm seeing, because people are not now sitting in a room and deciding. They're actually looking for data that says, okay, let's just decide what the consumer is doing, and then we can base our dollar accordingly.
yeah, it's interesting. We have Microsoft offices in over 200 countries, right? And we try to get this balance between global execution, global capabilities, and local execution. But what's fascinating is if you look at a market like Myanmar, something that's really not on the radar in the US, from a technological perspective, they've completely skipped the client-server computing era. They're a mobile first, and because they're mobile first, they're a cloud first country. And the plan that we need for Myanmar and how we drive marketing and how we drive our business execution is radically different than what we'll do in Australia, right? And the opportunity is in fact different and in some ways very, very interesting for us. And so for us, especially for our high growth emerging markets, having custom tailored plans for those markets is a requirement, for sure.
I think we've seen it's mixed, right? We've seen some brands do this, and the larger they are, they start to look at mobile first, mobile only, right? So a lot of the developing markets. So it's not just Asia, it's going to be LATAM, it's going to be where there are a lot of just mobile only. Like, okay, how do you address that in your marketing? Because US doesn't really look at that. So they're going to address that kind of stuff.
My personal observation over the years in Asia especially is the fact that the last few years we've also seen the rise of very strong local marketers leadership. So it used to be the case where a client, a CMO in Vietnam would never go against somebody that's from US or Australia. But today you have a very different kind of scenario where there's a very strong, healthy debate of marketing point of view and backed with data and stats. So I think in that sort, we're seeing this rise of this bunch of local marketing leadership, which is great, right?
And the rise of China has really shifted people's attention.
Yeah.
Okay, any more burning question? Yeah.
Well, kind of a sort of an observation. This has been really interesting, and I come from a commercial investment bank, and just a couple of observations, right? I think there's never been a better time to build brands thanks to digital. Digital has helped democratize the approach. Any brand can actually get out there and build it, and that's amazing. And a big old investment bank like I work for is actually doing it. So I think digital is a huge enabler. The other one that's interesting in Taru is probably about 6 months ago, I was thinking of hiring a head of digital for Asia Pacific, and I actually put the job JD out and I retracted it for that same thing, because I think from a integration, comms, marketing, PR, internal, everything, sales, I thought digital was an island, and then I found that digital was the only thing that could bring everybody together. So so that was two, and then I think three, if you could give your agency a chance, because I sit in on a lot of my juniors when they brief in agencies and they talk to agencies, they expect the agency to know more about their clients and then they get impressed. And I think that's not fair, because you really have to sit down and work it out with the agency and bring them on board and treat them, quite interestingly, as a partner, because the more they know about your business and your segments, they can actually bring in some really ideas around how to generate engagement or drive demand. So it kind of can value differentiation. So I think it's, there's a couple of points there that, big brands are learning and getting up to that, and it's been quite a journey.
Or you could fire the agency and hire CtrlShift.
No, I think, you're as good as your agency, you allow your agency to be. You've got to give them a chance, but a lot of times when I sat in with the agencies, when I go in and say, okay, let's sit down in the agency briefing, I'm appalled that, that it was just a one-way street and the agency was just throwing stuff on the wall, and the marketing people are not doing their jobs.
Well, the advertiser agency model has to change, right? It needs to, as you say.
I think the model's changed already, but.
Well, I'm saying commercially.
Yeah, well, commercially, then as a client, you can move on, right?
Yeah.
You can move on, or you re-brief in what you want as a client want, right? And what you expect of the agency and your team. I think you drive the change internally first, and then they get it, and then they drive that with their partners. So it's quite interesting. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's a really interesting time, but it's never been a better time to build a brand.
Back to Mad Men days.
Okay, yeah, we have a question.
Judging by the panel, yes.
Yeah, one question.
I mean, because of that, talking about the agencies, they seem to be evolving as well, and by keeping the ecosystem of agency and advertising, the AOR alive, they are acquiring lots of ad-tech companies, buying into the digital ecosystem. So how do you see, and this is open to the panel and anybody else here, how do you see that evolve over time? The competition,
Can I take the question?
I'm just wondering if I can talk about
Sure. Sure.
So do you see that happening in like the next couple of years?
It's happening now, and it will continue to happen. I mean, given the fact that, you see, even if we talk about the entire world of marketing, every single organization is being disrupted, including the agencies, right? So everyone is trying to hustle to survive, to find the next big platform of growth. And behind every company, every successful company now, there's always a 500-pound gorilla. Now there's two, right? Called the big G and the big F on both sides of my shoulders. And everybody just need to continue to evolve and adapt and find a way to be strong. I think that's my humble opinion.
No, I think a lot of it is just, so I spent all too many years in agency groups like Interpublic and WPP. So we helped acquire some of these businesses. But guys, it's really, it's a patchwork effect. The companies don't really come together. Holding is, yes, similar. On the ground, and you work with some of these big network agencies, guys, they'll say on paper that they can bring you every possible solution. But when you have that meeting, each of them will have their account manager. So you're actually talking to 6 businesses. So I think it's going to take a while. I think some of the companies that are solving it in specific niches. So I'll give you 2 specific examples. Analytics, these guys can verify. There is more ability for a regional player to consolidate analytics because it can be done centrally. You don't need an expert necessarily in Vietnam and in Philippines. Social, I would be very cautious if someone says they have a good regional footprint because social is a very local affair. So when you're hiring AORs, be very careful about these realities because on PowerPoint, everything looks awesome.
Just a bit about that comment. I think the challenge is bringing multiple disciplines under one roof. And one of the issues I think that agencies have is, which engineer has traditionally wanted to work for an agency?
Right.
Right. So that's one of the challenges that we're actually taking on head on, right? Bringing the engineer, putting him next to the creative, putting him next to the product person, putting him next to the the marketer, and really making them work together. And I think that's the opportunity, and that's a challenge, but it's also not.
So it seemed like Kellogg, right, is taking programmatic in-house, has taken programmatic in-house, but doesn't mean they don't use agency, right? They still use it for other things. There's still the creative side of things. There's still tons of things. So the agency model will change. I think AOR is probably something that will suffer, especially global AOR. Oh my God, really? And that's hard to sort of deal with. As a company that's now 20% owned by WPP, yeah, I mean they okay. Like, but exactly like Taru was XM before, and the way it's a network. They don't touch anything. If anything, I leverage off where I can, but they don't reach down and really say how we operate within a particular client set, or how do we go after a client together. That doesn't happen.
So I just want to add one thing, right? I think we talk a lot about agencies, but as marketers and all that, we just need to set what we want from our partners. They could be agencies, vendors, consultants, whatever you want to call it. If we set the right KPIs and a party can deliver, it just so happens they're an agency, then by all means, right? That's true, but what we've seen in marketing is that every 6-7 years, you go from consolidation to specialization, back to consolidation, right? I think we're moving down consolidation. But the big disruptors for the agencies actually aren't particularly players like us, because the guys who are disrupting is actually the Adobes of the world, the Salesforces of the world, the Accentures of the world, and all that stuff, who suddenly want to be agencies. Right?
The CtrlShift of the world.
And we're just a part of that group, right? So everyone's going into this multi-billion-dollar global marketing economy, and so everyone's coining a new name for what they do. I don't want to call myself an agency, so I'm going to call myself something else. But we just need to evaluate based on skill sets and the ability to deliver.
think what's getting squeezed are the media agencies. They're the ones getting squeezed. All the others, the creatives, the strategy, that's all still like big money.
But Joe, they're all complaining as well.
Yeah,
All right.
they are
Creative
complaining
and the
as well.
strategy businesses are complaining as well.
Because of the new entrants.
It's all
Right.
basically Reddit's your fault.
I think he wishes. I think he wishes it was his fault because there's the Accentures and the other sides of the world. Right?
Okay, we're kind of stretching the time. Is there one last burning question? As long as it's not manifolded question. No? So I'd like to thank.
I'll ask
Yeah.
one more question.
Yeah.
I should have been on the panel. Female representation, spicing things up. If you were able to invest in one company at the moment, who would it be? Like, who's really kind of piqued your interest?
Public listed, non-public listed, can I exit now or tomorrow? There's a lot of investment criteria.
Shocking.
Business.
I can't tell you. I'm trying to build it. Personalized social listening. I've talked to people before.
Space. Are you referring to space or a company or?
Anything. Oh gosh.
Anything.
Electric cars. Duh.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would invest in a company that's providing sustainable, technology. So I think I've been obviously one of the many fans of Elon Musk. So whatever he's doing is very admirable. So I definitely be trying to bring people to Mars for the next place to live. Yeah.
Please refer to him as my future husband.
Who is that?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Joe.
I've kept my shares in Microsoft. It's not a startup, but it's starting back up. And all of those things that I talked about, from machine learning to the CRM systems, and this is not a product plug, but this is the truth. This is how I feel. To our lead management, lead scoring, digital assets, it's all on our platform, right? And the work that we're doing on cloud and mobile, I believe in, and I think we're going to reinvent it. So.
Hey, who would be your second pick then?
I don't know. I'll come back. Just go this way, and I'll let me think about that one.
I would invest in Rocket Internet because they're incredibly diversified and they have a very good operating playbook, and they're able to either get successful with businesses or fail and exit businesses very quickly. So they're very adaptable.
I'm waiting for this company to launch a Series B or something. But this is a company that makes personal loans based on your social status. So it's going to disrupt banks. And I think it's going to completely blow open the whole lending market. So
like if you're a key influencer, or say you're a YouTube
it
star.
goes back to the history of money lending, where you got money in a village based on your reputation, not because of what Experian told you on your credit rating. So that, imagine globalized for people who need loans. Like, I don't know if you come across Grameen Bank.
Yep.
It's so Grameen Bank is a micro lending business. It has the lowest default rate compared to any established bank, and it lends to small enterprises run by women. Yeah, very reliable.
Yeah.
So it's a similar business, but scaled up, and your social networking will have a bearing on your credit scoring.
Yeah, and building on that, and to answer your question, if you look at The Economist that's out right now, the front of The Economist talks about Bitcoin, if you guys read it, and the transformation that Bitcoin is going to drive, the core technology in terms of creating a trusted ledger and relationship between two people exchanging dollars, exchanging property deeds, exchanging intellectual property, is going to transform, I think, the way that we lend and exchange things. And there's a number of startups building off of Bitcoin technology, underlying technology, that I think are going to disrupt a lot of traditional businesses, banking being the starting point, but many other businesses.
And biotech. I want to live longer.
Yeah.
Okay. A big thank you to our fantastic panel, Joe, Jordan, Justin, Todd, and Taru. Thank you so much.